Hi, guys, and welcome to episode 6 of Retro Recipe Rewind. On today's episode, we're jumping forward a few years to the 1950s and looking at the Betty Crocker cookbook for boys and girls. Perfect for our back-to-school episode, this cookbook focused on giving kids responsibility through the art of cooking. This book was perfect for our back-to-school special. It features children in each of the recipes, tons of colorful photographs, tips and tricks for cooking in different locations, such as on campsites, rules for the kitchen, a list of materials a person would need for when cooking or baking, a guide on the best way to measure things, and even a list for different kitchen terms. On today's menu, we'll be looking at 3 recipes: chili concoction, Spanish rice, and strawberry shortcake. But as always, it's time for some history facts. 1957 was another year of great changes for the American landscape. There was yet another pandemic. The H2N2 influenza virus was spreading rapidly across the U.S. A children's classic, The Cat in the Hat, was published for the very first time. The country known as the Gold Coast gained its independence from Britain and became known as Ghana. President Eisenhower signed into law the first civil rights bill since 1875. The Civil Rights Act came about after Brown versus the Board of Education and gave federal protection to black voting rights. NBC used its Peacock for the first time. West Side Story debuted on Broadway. And Sputnik 1 and 2 were launched into space. Sputnik 2 had a dog upon it, which made the dog the first living creature to venture into outer space. Now, on to the recipes. You will need Make sure to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Alright, let's get started. First things first, let's prep. We're going to start off with our small onion and chop up about 1/4 cup. And because I only plan on crying once in this episode, let's move on to the larger onion. Now let's work on the rice. Very important step that a lot of people forget. Wash off your rice. This will remove any surface starch from off of the rice grains, which can lead the rice to becoming gummy. And nobody wants that. Washing the rice will help to give it a better texture and keep it from drying out too quickly. Wash until the water is clear like this. Add your beautifully cleaned rice to a pot and add in your water. I decided to add in enough water that it touched the first joint in my finger, just to see if the trick worked. Once the rice begins to bubble, drop the heat, cover it, and let it go for 15 minutes. Now that our rice is going, let's tackle those peppers. The recipe calls for 1/4 cup, and I found that using 1/2 of a green pepper was the perfect amount. Place 4 strips of bacon into your pan and cook until beautiful brown. While your bacon is going, to another pan, add some oil and put in your ground beef so it can brown. Let's check on our rice. Just the way I wanted it. Nice, airy, and fluffy. Set your rice to the side for a moment and chop up your bacon. Then add your bacon to the baking dish. Next, into the pan that you fried your bacon in, add your green pepper and your onions and cook down until they are soft. Once nice and brown, add in your rice. Finally, your 2 cups of tomatoes. Mix it all together until everything is incorporated. Then, once everything has come together nicely, transfer your rice mixture over to your baking pan with the bacon. Last step, take your cheese and sprinkle it over top. Then place it in your 400-degree oven and bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. Now while that's going, return to your ground beef and add in your can of kidney beans, your tomatoes, your onion, and the chili powder. Please be careful when adding this. You don't want to overspice your dish. Cover and let it simmer for an hour. Now we can move on to the cake. Start by sifting your 2 cups of flour. Always remember, start off slowly. Into your flour, then add your 2 tablespoons of sugar and your 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Don't forget to add in a few sprinklings of salt. Then add in your 1/3 cup of shortening. Mix together with a fork for easy combination. Lastly, it's time to add in the 1 cup of milk. Like I say, do this in stages. That way your batter won't be too over dry or overly wet. Then mix together until the dough is formed. Then add your dough into a greased cake pan. By this time, the Spanish rice should be complete. Take it out of the oven and ramp it up to 450. Then take a few chunks of cold butter and place them in different parts of the cake. Then put your cake in a 450-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. So while everything is coming together, let's take a look at what it would be like to go back to school in 1957. While most of us are dealing with the trials and tribulations of virtual education and social distancing, kids in 1957 were going through an even greater shift. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that school segregation was unconstitutional, and the children in 1957 were the first group to go through school integration. For the longest time in the U.S., schools were segregated, separate but completely unequal. But in 1957, all of that was about to change. September 4th, 1957, Governor Orval Faubus of Arkansas called in the National Guard to keep out a group of African American students, later to be known as the Little Rock Nine, out of Central High School. On September 20th, federal judge Ronald Davies ordered the guards removed, and the kids tried to return to school on September 23rd, but sadly they couldn't even get through an entire day of school because of rioting. In response to the chaos, on September 24th, President Eisenhower sent 1,200 soldiers from the 101st Airborne Division to escort the children into school. They finally got their first full day of class on September 25th. Now, let's finish off our meal by making our own whipped cream. I'm using about a cup of whipping cream and giving it just a gentle stir before I add in my favorite ingredient, vanilla. Then continuing on with the mixing. Now it's time to add in the sugar. I did this a tablespoon at a time, just so I could adjust and make sure it's not too sweet. Please be careful not to overmix because you don't want to make butter. Now our cake is out of the oven and looking amazing. Our Spanish rice is all cheesy and bubbly. And our chili concoction smells divine. Let's get our tasting plate, and it's time to taste test. First up, the chili concoction. So, I was pleasantly surprised by the way that this tasted, especially for being in a kid's cookbook. It was really good. This is a perfect family dish, fast, quick, and easy. If I were to make this again for myself, I would add in a few more spices like garlic powder, maybe some cheese or some red pepper, but as a basic dish, it was great. Now on to the kid-friendly Spanish rice. I was so shocked when I ate this. It was actually good. I don't even know how to describe it. It was really good. The bacon added the saltiness that the dish needed. The peppers weren't overcooked, the onions gave it the flavor that I needed, and the rice wasn't overly mushy. I was so glad I added in both of those cheeses. They really made the dish. Finally, on to dessert. Strawberry shortcake, and it was so good, you guys. Oh my goodness. It was delicious. It brought back so many memories of me growing up, and I absolutely loved it. The butter made it light, it made it rich, it made it airy. The whipped cream was delicious. The strawberries had just enough sweetness. I love this. I recommend 2 thumbs up and happy dance. Hi guys, thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of Retro Recipe Rewind. Each week we investigate a different cookbook to find out what were people really eating back in the past. Be sure to follow me on all my social media. The links will be in the description below. On my Instagram, we do some behind the scenes, some polls to find out what you want to see, and in the future, some giveaways. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Remember, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and even share with family and friends if you enjoyed what you saw here. And if you just so happen to make a recipe from one of the episodes, send it to me via email, and I'll be sure to feature you at the end of one of the episodes. Until next time, signing off for Retro Recipe Rewind.